In this video, I'm gonna teach you guys the 5 things that I learned by hanging out with a group of individuals that are worth $1 billion. So this weekend, I hung out with Dan Martell. He invited me to this thing called the Empire Mastermind. Now, the Empire Mastermind is essentially a bunch of Dan Martell's friends, and he all brought them together, and this room was full of people that are making an insane amount of money. One of the guys sold his company for $500 million. There's another guy that's actually in Kelowna that has a company that does $150 million worth of revenue a year. He designed this compost bin for inside of your kitchen. And this machine is also AI learning. And so what it'll do is it actually connects to local grocery stores, and it tells local grocery stores to order more bananas because people in the area are eating a lot of bananas. It's actually like wild. But so I'm hanging out in this room full of all these super smart, high-level, powerful individuals. And without wasting any time, I'm gonna give you the 5 things that I learned by hanging out with these individuals. First things first, AI is coming, and it's coming in hot, and if you're not adapting it, you're gonna get left behind.
New AI tools have been unleashed into the public sphere, which may threaten the survival of human civilization.
I think that for a long time, I resisted using artificial intelligence because I'm like, it's whatever, it's ChatGPT is whatever. ChatGPT is like an essential part of life right now. The way that Dan described it, he's like, you want to view ChatGPT almost like your intern. It's like it's your co-pilot for everything that you do. This is the story that Dan said. He's like, I was on an airplane and I was sitting next to a lawyer, and he's like, have you used ChatGPT? And she's like, what's ChatGPT? And he's like, what's ChatGPT? And so he busted out his laptop and he pulled it open. He's like, what are you working on right now? She's like, I do contracts. He's like, what do you do contracts for? She's like, I do contracts for real estate. He's like, what state? He's like, and she's like, the state of Texas. He's like, give me a very complex contract that you would have to write for one of your clients in the state of Texas. And so she explained this very complex problem. And so Dan gave the ChatGPT all of the complex problem and the prompts, and ChatGPT literally spat out a contract that would have taken her a couple days to write in 30 seconds. And then it paused for a second and it wrote in a clause, and she was like, holy crap. How did it know how to write it in that clause? I wouldn't have even thought of that. And so when you really think about this idea that ChatGPT is here, and not only is it here, but like some of the stuff that I learned at this AI conference is literally on another level. There was a guy there from daily.ai, and daily.ai is this newsletter where it's an artificial intelligence that learns your email list. And so it'll send out an email. It will pay attention to who opened the emails, what content they engaged with, and the next email it sends them, it'll send them more content like the email that they engaged with. So it's like, it literally learns your preferences, and then it will curate content for you, for your list, without you doing anything, based on your own content that you've already created. And then it will send it out to your list in a way that they engage with. So artificial intelligence is here to stay, and it's one of those things that you can't really get away from. Just like when, electricity came and everybody started freaking out, but then everybody adopted electricity. Our world is gonna change in that way. If you're not using AI, this is a reminder that it's here to stay and it's not going anywhere. So that was the first thing I learned. Second thing I learned, and this is gonna be valuable for you if you ever struggle with overwhelm, this is a really practical tool, is if you're ever overwhelmed, dump, chunk, and sequence. I think this is a really useful tool for me because this weekend was so crazy. There was so much information, and I almost didn't even know where to start with the information. And so what I decided to do is I basically asked Dan, I'm like, how do I deal with this overwhelm? And he's like, if you're ever overwhelmed, what you do is you brain dump all of the information in your head, get all of it out, everything that you're overwhelmed about, all of your thoughts, get it all out onto paper. So step number 1 is to dump all of your thoughts onto a notepad, onto a sheet of paper, to start writing. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is you want to chunk up all of those thoughts into different areas. And so let's say, some of the overwhelm is around your family life, and some of it's around the fact that you haven't been taking care of your fitness, and some of it's around you haven't been posting content, and some of it is around how you're like struggling with like your money mindset. Then what you want to do is you want to dump it all, then chunk it and put it in different buckets, and then sequence it, meaning what is the activity that if you take care of that first, it will help alleviate some of the other stress of the other things. And then you tackle that thing first, and then it will make everything else better. So when you're overwhelmed, dump everything out onto a sheet of paper, chunk it out into different areas, and then sequence it into order of like, this will be the most painkiller, and it will remove the most resistance, which will make everything else easier. And then you can start to go to the other things as you get less and less overwhelmed. So I thought that was a really useful tool, and maybe you'll find it useful too. Oh, this one was good. Number 3 is you are not financially free until money is not the primary motivator for you doing something. It is a consideration, but it's not a motivator. I met a guy there, we call him Money Jesus. His name is Garrett Gunderson, and you guys can Google him. Garrett Gunderson, he's a New York Times bestseller. He was there, he was one of the speakers. And Garrett Gunderson is a man who has amassed a massive fortune throughout his lifetime. I asked him personally, I was like, bro, how much money have you made in your lifetime? I'm like, I'm just curious. Because I wanted to know who I was learning from. I was like, I'm just curious. And I thought it was gonna be like 10, 20 million. This man has amassed, he's generated over $350 million with all of his businesses and sales. He said, he's like, you are not financially free until money is not the primary reason for you doing something. How many people, their primary reason for doing anything is the amount of money they're gonna make? And you can say you're not one of those people, but why the fuck do you work at the job that you work at? Why are you going to work every single day if money's not the primary consideration for you doing something? Oh, you're telling me you want to work at your 9 to 5? You want to work at that fucking job? Are you joking me? And it's like, even for us that are like business owners, it's like, I heard that and that like fucking hit me on my core. He told a story about this guy that came into his office once. He was 59 years old. He's making $20, $30 million a year. So he was talking about how it was a guy that was 59 that came into his office that wanted to learn how to double his revenue. And Money Jesus looks at him and he's like, why? The guys were like, well, because I want to make more money. And he's like, why? And so he created this like annoying series of why questions to get to the actual root of the problem. And finally the guy was like, because maybe my dad will actually tell me that he loves me for the first time. And Money Jesus was like, well, I got
bad news for you. He's not going to tell you that he loves you.
And he dug into it a little bit. And he found out that the guy's dad had been raised in the Second World War. And he's like, does your dad say I love you to anybody? The guy's like, well, no. He's like, then what makes you think that you making more money is going to get him to say I love you to you now? Like maybe his expression of love for you is him just spending time with you and him acknowledging you. Like maybe that's how he expresses love, and he doesn't actually say I love you, but that doesn't mean he doesn't love you. That's just not how he expresses it. He found out that this guy actually, because he was chasing this arbitrary trophy and hoping that he was going to get this validation from his father, what he was actually doing is he had a super negative relationship with his own son. And he had demons with his own family. And it was like this need to fill this internal void by chasing a trophy that you think is going to make you feel some sort of sense of significance was actually causing you to avoid the actual thing that you needed to deal with in your life. And so oftentimes I think that that hit me on such a deep level that I literally came home after Money Jesus' talk. And I came home and I was like, babe, I want to spend some time with you. I was like, I feel like I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I feel like I'm just working for the sake of working without ever like slowing down and being like, man, like, let me just enjoy my life for a little bit. Like I've done a great job. So you are not financially free until money is not the primary consideration for you for doing something. I thought that was really powerful, and hopefully you find that useful too. Ooh, this one is good. 4, proximity is power. I think that people don't really fully understand what that means. I believe in osmosis, and my definition of osmosis is when you're around an environment for long enough, eventually the environment rubs off on you. And another way of saying that is when you hang around the barbershop for long enough, eventually you get a haircut. And so the reason I love going to these events is when I actually meet my mentor in person, I meet Dan Martell in person, then I see the life that he's created, and I see how much money he's making, how much impact he has, how much freedom he has, what kind of dad he is. And then I see all of the people that he spends time with and how much money they're making and how free they are and the vision that they have and the impact that they're making on the world. I'm sitting in a room with a guy that's literally sold one of his companies for $500 million. And I'm in a one-on-one conversation with him. I'm like, oh, this is possible. These are just regular dudes. Like these are regular dudes, and I'm a regular dude, and I'm just like them. Like it's possible, And I think that is something that I want to give. That's a gift that I want to give to my students as well, is that like gift of proximity. And giving them an environment where they can come together and be around each other and be inspired and be motivated by one another, I think is a very powerful gift. And so just being around people that are doing the things that you want to do in your life, and being around people that have ambition, that have drive, that have goals, that have vision, I really don't think that there's a substitution for it. I don't think that you can ever substitute the actual benefit that you get from being in the same room as somebody that is ambitious and has the results that you want and is open and willing to share that energy with you. Like there is something different. And even somebody that isn't open and willing to share, by the way, just being in the presence of somebody that is achieving greatness and you seeing it for yourself with your own eyes, like there is something powerful about that, and you won't get that unless you get around people that are successful. And so proximity is power, and you need to do whatever you can to get around the people that you admire and that you respect, because just by being in their presence, eventually it will rub off on you and you will achieve your own greatness because you will see that level for yourself. And number 5, and this one is really practical, and this was a business tactic that I learned, and I think this is really useful, is the best marketing is a great product. So Dan Martell talked about in the software world how the best software companies don't focus on marketing, they focus on developing a great product, because when you have a great product, it does the marketing for itself. And I think that a lot of online coaches, including myself, I've been guilty of this as well, as I'm like, I just want to sell more people, I want to get more people into the program, I want to focus on marketing, focus on sales, but like, you can't out-market a bad product. And so if you go out there and you sign a bunch of customers, and then those customers come in, and when they experience your program, they don't actually get the value because you haven't focused on delivering the product and delivering the service and actually making sure that it's great. When that happens, you're just gonna sign more people, and then your word of mouth is gonna build in a negative way fast, because you're signing a bunch of people, and then a bunch of people are getting bad experience, and a bunch of people are telling all their friends about it. And so you really want to make sure that you focus on product development, because if your product is really good, people are going to tell their friends about you. Right? People are going to tell their friends about your product, and they're going to stick around for longer. Your retention rates are going to be good. And so the best marketing really is a great product. And so you want to make sure that you spend a lot of time on making sure that the service that you deliver to your clients is phenomenal, and always stay focused on that. And don't spend all of your energy on sales and marketing when you know that you're missing stuff on the back end. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you find it valuable. If you did, comment on the video, let me know, and I'll talk to you soon.